Hi, my name is Pablo Fernandez and I'm going to present the paper entitled Bluejay, a team practice audit framework for Agile software development. This is a joint work between the University of California at Berkeley and the University of Seville. The motivation of this paper is based on software engineering courses where instructors want to teach how the well-known processes in the industry are presented to the students and measure if the students are understanding the process as a whole. We can see the typical example of a process where multiple tools are involved, like for example, People Tracker for issue management, a Heroku for deployment, or GitHub as a code management system. So in this kind of scenarios, a process that involves several actions in different tools by the different team members, like for example the management of tasks and issues in the Agile process, while the deployment of the platform is done, and also all the different events related with the code management. The idea is that in the industry it is well known that a good team follows those kind of events in a harmonized way, so the process can easily develop and the whole team is nicely coordinated. This is a simple example of a process, but we could think much more elaborate examples with other tools involved, like continuous integration, etc. In this context, Bluejay at a glance is a tool that allows those kind of process to be explicitly stated in a set of team practices. So Bluejay can harvest and gather all the different events from the different tools and generate a set of dashboards that are useful for both the students and instructors. In the heart of Bluejay, it is we use a generic SLA management framework, service level agreement management framework called Governify. So Bluejay transformed those team practices into service level agreements that are then monitored, and dashboards are show that kind of monitoring. Inside of this ecosystem, we can find a microservice architecture composed of many components, but in particular, the adaptation that we have built for the context of Bluejay are only just a subset of those components, and also we have evolved and created new components to integrate with those 5 tools: People Tracker, Heroku, GitHub, Travis for continuous integration, and CodeClimate for code analysis and quality. The microservices that are composed by the platform are built in Node.js, and they are define the interface in a standard way with the OpenAPI standard specification, and also are easily deployed based on the Docker container system. The team practice agreement itself, it's just a set of team practices. So in order to understand that, we can see a very simple example of a team practice agreement that is composed of 3 practices. A first practice that states that at least 90% of started features should have a new branch associated in order to assure a coordination between the issue management platform like People Tracker and the code management platform like GitHub. And every time a person starts a feature, there should be a new branch in the code. A second team practice that defines that code coverage should increase in each stage in release. So we assure that every time we release the software to the customers to validate the new features, the code quality doesn't decrease. And third, a simple practice that is followed widely in the industry, that is that one person should only work on one story at a time in the middle of a sprint. This metric, for example, or this practice, for example, is something that is typically not enforced by the tools, so it requires the developer or the team that understand that practice and follow that. In order to see how simple it is to specify that into the Bluejay system, we can have that example, for example. And the way to specify that in Bluejay is by using a domain-specific language with the syntax in JSON and YAML that is composed of two elements. First, a metric that computes the number, and then the goal to meet if that number reaches a certain condition. In this case, for example, the metric will be something like compute the actual number of issues that are of type feature, bug, or chore, that are in the state of in progress. This is specific for Pivotal Tracker. And then the goal is just to specify the objective for that metric. In this case, is a simple threshold that should be less than or equal than 1. And the scope, so which is the guarantee the scope, that in this case it's going to be by member. We'll be analyzing if they are following each member or not. In order to see the flexibility, we can look at the different team practice patterns that we have. One is similar to that case, a number of events in a tool every period by a team or member. Another pattern could be basic statistical conditions over properties, like of a certain event, like for example the average of code coverage, for example. The frequency, the third pattern is about the frequency distribution of a certain event, like for example you want to specify that at least 2 releases should be done in each sprint. And the fourth and most interesting pattern is related with the correlation between events from different tools in a certain window every certain period of time. We have, in terms of periods, talking about long periods of time, and windows of correlations are small periods of time. And to see the current list of tools and events, we can have a wide variety of events that can be easily extended in the platform. Related to the dashboard, we can see simple examples that are good for introductory courses for students to just have a global overview whether they are following or not the practice, or much more elaborated dashboard where you can see the evolution of the adherence and how the current team is compared with the rest of teams in the class. As in putting Bluejay in practice, we have been applying that in different courses in both the University of California at Berkeley and the University of Seville in software engineering courses, ranging from 120 students and to 211 students in 4 2-week iterations. And mainly we use the iteration and the first iterations to explain the team practices, but in natural language. And then we introduce the dashboard to both the students, in some situations the students and the instructors, and in other situations only for the instructors. And in general, the reactions have been quite positive for both the self-efficacy perception and also how the adherence has been followed. So, in conclusion, we believe this is an open ecosystem of dashboard and metrics that could be easily extended, that provides a very practical framework to explore how the good practice could be followed and learned in a systematic way. And we believe that the potential applicability not only is educational context, but also it could be also good in professional settings, even in early stages for introduction to a new profession, a new developer into an organization, or to understand how the practices have been followed in a certain organization. Thank you very much for an additional info and a showcase demo of the system. You can go to the link governify.io, showcases Bluejay. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome everyone. I think this is the last ICSI session, so one of the last papers. This is the Q&A session for the last JSeed paper, as a matter of fact. And please post your questions and comments in the chat window. Pablo is here with me, and he will be able to take questions. And at the end of the session, we invite you to join the discussion group to meet Pablo, if you're inclined to do so. So if you have any questions, please shoot them. There aren't any questions on the chat window, so let me get the ball rolling, maybe. So I'm wondering, Pablo, you've used this tool in 2 courses and fairly large courses. Did you use it also for grading?
No, because our focus was to analyze if the students felt that they were learning the process in comparison with just giving them the instructions and let them fly, and we didn't want the grading to interfere with the actual learning experience, because is the typical cliche or stereotype that if you enforce in grading, they're going to be always trying to optimize the grading threshold, and they will forget about the whole process of the.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And that's what I was wondering about, because so we use also kind of this similar tools, not exactly doing what your tool is doing, but the effect is that, like, when you introduce metrics, it's a double-edged sword, right? And then students immediately try to game the system by playing to the metrics only.
Yes.
So that they're, they pass the thresholds, but they're going through the motions. Really, they're not just trying to pay lip service. And this is kind of a situation that we encounter. Do you have any ideas how to actually incorporate this into, how to take advantage of this information to be able to assess the students without kind of forcing them to play to the metrics?
Yeah, well, first of all, we wanted to try. There are 2 different, in our opinion, approaches to assess. Now, the first one would be to try to assess in a different set of metrics that are not known for the students. So we have like parallel, exactly. So they will be told that they are measured about the process themselves. About the process itself, of the process quality and the adherence to the process, and this is a helping tool to guide them into the process. We didn't do that at the moment, but this is in a future ongoing work. And also, the other way is to incorporate in the reviewing process, the periodic reviewing process, for example, with TAs. So perhaps it could be more a discussion facilitator tool to guide those interviews with the team. So the TAs are based on the dashboard that creates a system. A discussion could go on, and you can, based on those discussions, you can grade the students. But it's a more quantitative approach. Qualitative approach.
Qualitative approach.
Qualitative, quantitative. Yeah.
The problem with us with using the secret metrics, and we try to do that, is that students complain because they didn't know how they were being graded. At the end of the course, then all hell, breaks out, because you never told us that, you were looking at these dimensions, and then if we had known, we had done something about it. So unfortunately, it looks like there's always a trade-off to be to balance.
Yeah, absolutely, you're absolutely right. That's the reason the scoring is something that we want to put it at the first time aside.
Right.
Because, sorry.
No, finish your thought, please.
Well, I was going to say that we believe that when we're talking about a process understanding, it is much more a way of to improve the understanding of those processes is something that is really hard to put that into a metric or into a specific metric or scoring, because at the end it's a number. So we wanted just to make something helpful for the students that they really felt that was useful, rather than to put them on a score that they want to optimize.
Right. We have Octavio asking a question, and he's asking, are you collecting any data to study some patterns in the processes?
Well, that is something that we are doing in a different context with the same tooling, but in an industrial setting. What we're doing is we're talking with different companies. They open the ecosystem that they use, and using the same system, we try to, if they are telling us which are the best teams that are working great, and we try to analyze and learn what are the best patterns, or the patterns that arises from those data sets, but not in the context of the students, but because we only applied for a limited. I mean, the students, as you could imagine, the student courses are very short, and the history doesn't allow us. But if we keep on applying this framework in multiple courses in the future, perhaps we can also do that. That's a very interesting idea, and we have it, but mainly now in the industrial scenario.
So thank you very much for that. And I think that would be really valuable, actually, to mine those patterns and try to actually maybe see which ones are worthy of enforcing in the course because they happen to be successful in the industry.
Absolutely.
So my next question is, we of course know about Armando Fox's course at Berkeley, and we have a similar one at CMU Silicon Valley, using a lot of the same tools. There are only a few differences, like we use Circle CI instead of Travis, and we use ZenHub instead of Pivotal. I think we would benefit from using your tool as well, Bluejay. Is it possible to swap rules, configure the system so that we can use other tools?
Well, absolutely. I will say that was one of the key foundations of the design. The application of actually, we tried to build this microservice architecture where we just plug in different collectors with different toolings, but even without building new microservices, we have a fairly flexible collector that can be customized to interact with different APIs, because it's
a
interactive way. So
we can remove one hook and then put in another hook to be able to pull data from a different system.
Exactly. Actually, by the way, we are using ZenHub and GitHub issues in the Seville course rather than Pivotal Tracker.
Oh, I see. All right. So that's there's already an example of how ZenHub can be integrated. The CI server is actually easier, I think, it's to replace with Travis. I'd like to give it a try. Actually, I think it would help us. I'm not sure whether we would be inclined to use it for grading, but it's I think it's worthwhile to make it visible to the students as well, so that they have an idea about at least which dimensions are important to track.
Yeah, absolutely. In our opinion, I think one of the good things that allows this kind of tool is that it gives you an explicit hints of very specific things that typically tools doesn't enforce you. So you really need to keep on thinking on it, and that's terrible, because at the end, I mean, terrible for students that are starting to learn the ideas, no? But definitely, that quiz, great.
Yeah, and exactly.
Also, I was going to say that the more people that uses, we would like to. I mean, it could be really interesting to have a global benchmark or framework that with different scenarios, because we could collect patterns that help in a very systematic way if many people uses and applies it.
So we have 3 seconds and we're going to be off air.
Okay.